Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Plant Medicine here with Conscious Living Network. My name is Marc Caron, and we are less than a week away from the 11th Spirit Plant Medicine Conference happening here in Vancouver, November 4th, 5th, and 6th at UBC. And today I am here with my good friend, MC, author, ceremony leader, Stephen Gray, and Hereditary Chief Bill Lane Jr. So I'm going to pass it off to Stephen to set up our conversation for this morning. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everybody. So as Mark just mentioned, we're here with Hereditary Chief Phil Lane Jr. He's an enrolled member of the, excuse me if I don't get this quite right, Phil, the Ihanktawa, Dakota, and Chickasaw nations, and is an internationally recognized leader in human, community, and economic development. Born at the Haskell Indian School in Lawrence, Kansas in 1944, where his mother and father met and attended school. During the past 48 years, Chief Lane has worked with Indigenous peoples from North, Central, and South America, Micronesia, Southeast Asia, India, Hawaii, and Africa. Served for 16 years as an associate professor at the Faculty of Education at the University of Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. And he's also one of our 24 or so brilliant speakers at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference coming up November 4th to 6th. So, Phil, I'm going to pass you the talking stick in a second here, but I just want to begin with a bit of a preamble. You have talked about the spread of Indigenous connections and wisdom around the continent and beyond. And I've been hearing about this kind of thing for some time now. There have been prophecies about this and visions that say, that the Indigenous people in various places have kept some of their wisdom and their practices secret from the European settlers or the white men or whatever you want to call them, and until now. And then they're getting messages from the spirits, if you will, saying, things are so bad, we have to start sharing these. And then I want to add one more little thought into this before I pass the stick to you. When you and I talked on the phone the other day, I mentioned Ken Littlefish, with whom you're familiar. Ken shared with me, he's a roadman with the Native American Church, deceased roadman. Ken shared with me one time that he and some of his associates had a vision, which is that when the viability and solidity of the current sort of illusion of how to run the world starts to crumble, there will come a point where there's a big enough crack opening for a new vision to come in, and it will rise up from the bottom, so to speak. So with that little preamble, we're just going to, as I say, pass the talking stick to you and sort of sit back with a cup of coffee and let you talk.
Good one. First of all, I want to just give my heartfelt thanksgiving that for the past 11 years, you've had the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference and the way you've respected Indigenous people, Indigenous wisdom. I really thank you for that, because it's really interesting as you look back in history. When we got together here in the Americas, the European tribes arrived, which, by the way, was inevitable. The world's round. We as human beings are very, very, very curious beings for part of us. And so we gathered here as prophesied. Our prophecies prophesied this gathering together over 500 years ago. And that particular prophecy was called the reunion of the condor and the eagle, about how across the Americas for a period of 500 years, the union would be broken. But through the spiritual process, the prayers, our sacred medicines, which have been at the core of our healing for thousands of years, that we would not only survive, but we would, when the world was going down, you might say, when you had the old cycle, the old beginning to die away, just like the seasons, and the new springtime came, we would go through this winter time of 500 years, but then this new springtime would come. And we're in that new springtime now. And just like the encounter with the indigenous people of the Americas now provides over 80%, around 80% of all the food being eaten in the world today was in fact domesticated here in the Americas. So that was one gift that came from the Americas. And of course, the gold and silver, along with the relatives of Africa, their gold and silver enabled Europe for the first time to have a currency system and not a barter system. And now we see our indigenous medicines across the Americas, which, by the way, of 120 psychoactive psychedelic medicines that have been identified by Western science, over 100 come from the Americas. And because of this focus on the spirit, relatively, this in relative terms, because there was conflicts here, but compared to the battles that went on in other parts of the world where hundreds of thousands of men were thrown into violent conflict and wars raged everywhere, it was not so in the Americas. It was relatively in peace and harmony. And that's why when Columbus arrived, in my day, when I was a professor at the University of Lethbridge, it was calculated at around 100 million indigenous people were living here prior to the arrival of Columbus. Now, most scholars are saying around 108 million indigenous people. Well, how could that be? Because we're living in relative peace and harmony. And that relative peace and harmony, when you're in unity, you can create individually and collectively anything in unity. We can see that. I saw that, by the way, when I went at 78 years old to Burning Man, and I saw, wow, when human beings come together, what they can create in unity with simple, basic principles of unity. So, and I think a perfect example of that is your dear brother who helped you with the NAC, the Native American Church, Peyote. Peyote is a perfect example of this. And that is really, it wasn't until the late 1890s or 1880s that in fact peyote, which had been a primary sacrament, a primary way of healing to the south in Mexico, Texas and Mexico, that down that area, had not come up north. But by that time, in the late 1800s, the people were so broken and so hurt. And we had this Comanche who found this medicine. There's a whole story about it, how this medicine revealed itself. And Juana Parker then, who in one of the people's, who the relatives there had been through so much trauma, they took this medicine as a sacrament. And because of the prohibition against any kind of indigenous spirituality by the US government, in fact, they didn't pass the Freedom of Indian Religion Act until about 1977, you can imagine that, where they actually said it was okay for us to practice our own ways. But through the use of peyote, they were able to create the Native American Church, which then it was acceptable enough to the government, and it spread everywhere across Canada, the United States, because it was a medicine that helped the people survive. They survived literal genocide. And so now what I see, so interesting, so there was first all the foods that around the world we've shared, the gold and silver we've shared, so many things have been shared, but now we can see our sacred medicines are also being taken and shared. And I want to say that one of the things that we'll want to address, and I heard all the indigenous speakers when we spoke before, is we've got to be able to give thanksgiving to those relatives who've developed these medicines. There has to be a reciprocity here. And we're going to present that at conference. We're going to present how we're actually utilizing a whole new development called Clairgetics. You can't even find it on the internet. It's brand new, but it's really based in old indigenous knowledge, because you'll notice in the various medicines we use, plant medicines, we've learned how to combine them. We've learned that small amounts of different medicines together are like an alloy. An alloy, you take different pieces of metal and you combine them to create an alloy. And one metal may have a tensile strength of 15, another have a tensile strength of 10. That means the power to pull them apart. You put them together, one with 10 and one with 15, you figure they have a tensile strength of about 12.5, but instead they have their tensile strengths 100 or 1,000. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so that's what Clairgenics is really sharing with us now, because this is where we're able to combine the best of indigenous science with Western science and spirituality, because we are really spiritually sick. Not Mother Earth, we're sick as a human family, extremely sick. You know, fentanyl, by the way, has become the #1 cause of death between, in the United States, and I don't know about Canada yet, but in the United States, the greatest cause of death between 18 and 45, more though than cancer, COVID, or you name it. It's the #1 cause of death. That's a cause that comes from within. We are spiritual beings. These sacred medicines, and I say, I'm really like that you say spiritual, but they're sacred. For instance, the foundation song of the White Buffalo Cattleman, which I'll share really briefly. Why-on-Kie, 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 Kanupa-Kie, Waka-Yelo, why-on-Kie. That's a foundation teaching of the White Buffalo Cattleman who gave that song. And what it's saying symbolically says the pipe, it is sacred. But what it's saying is the bowl, which represents the mineral people, that's sacred. The water and the earth, they're sacred. The plant people make up the stem, they're sacred. They're sacred. And they have a special relationship with us. That's why we know now that through science, that certain receptors of the brain are already fixed to receive the help that plant medicines have to give. And then, of course, you have, with our bundles, we always have, we call our animal relatives. You know, there might be an eagle feather there, but they have the power of the senses. So, but they're all interconnected for the mineral, the water, the earth, the plants, the animal relatives, and then come ourselves as human beings, which, by the way, are one with the mineral people, the plant people, and the animal people. That is, they feel the same pain, physical pain we do. That's why it's so important we have show kindness to animals, because it's a demonstration of how sick we are, the way we're treating animals, the way we're treating in these factory farms, the way we're treating our animal relatives is just heartbreaking. But that's because the other dimension of us we have, which we believe at the time of conception, each of us is born a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting, and that's reflected through our soul. And there's different words in indigenous language for the word soul. But what it means is that part of us that comes from something beyond this place of time and space. It's beyond our understanding fully. But we also know that the soul is what these medicines really help us to understand, the inner part. Now, fundamental to these sacred medicines that people will share with you is a sense, because when we take and put the pipe together, the stem representing man, the bowl representing Mother Earth and womankind, when we put those together, when we have that pipe, that's the full human being, as the bowl is like the mouth. And so that's the wholeness, the human wholeness, but it's sacred, and everything's sacredly related. And so that's why it's so important with these gifts the Creator's given us for this special time, this epigenic time in human history where we need to share. Frank Foolscrow, actually back in the late 1970s, was the one that really, because you're going to have to understand, after such a great loss by indigenous people of so much, there's a reluctance to share, what we have left. At the same time, what Frank Fusco said, if we don't share what we know, Mother Earth will die, and if Mother Earth dies, we will die. In essence, is what he said. And I believe that for the 55 years that I've been working, serving the best I can Indigenous people, beginning back, I guess, well, it's been almost 55 years, beginning back in March 1970, when I first went to Bolivia. I went there, spent 2 years there in the Andes, in the Amazon, really learning from those relatives about these prophecies, what was going to happen. And they're happening. It's happening. As we see the materialistic way of thinking, while we see it disintegrating, these systems based in ego, not based in the original teachings of the pacemaker of the original Constitution, of which they drew a lot in the US Constitution. They had women were key to this. Mothers and grandmothers were key. And as well, the spiritual dimension. And when you leave that out, then we see exactly what's happening. Because after all the natural resources, use them all up, then what do you have? What we know, is those medicines that heals the soul. And that's what clairgenics are about. And I'm looking forward to share that. Because what's happened is we've worked with medical science, functional doctors, and I think it's very important that we include the medical community in what we're doing. Very important, because we want to be sure when we use these medicines that everybody who is coming to be for healing, that we really understand where they're at, what kind of medicines are they taking, what kind of conditions do they have, are they really prepared for these powerful experiences? And I think key as well is who's sharing the medicine. You know, we can only take people where we're at. If we have hangups sexually, if we have hangups materially, things in our lives about money, we're not in a good position to deliver this medicine. Because when you deliver this medicine, it has to be done with purity, with a pure heart, a pure mind, because you're connecting this person with spirit. And so, you know, in these medicines, one of the common things that people experience is oneness, the oneness of all life. And that fits back to our Indigenous understanding of the prior unity and oneness of our human family. That is, we've always been a human family. And just like the baby in the mother's womb goes through different shapes and sizes and so forth, no matter what it may look like in the womb, where it's growing its physical arms and legs and eyes and ears, right? It's in this womb world. And yet it lives in this world. It's right here. It receives its substance from this world outside the womb. The mother is feeding us in that womb. And we're growing our spiritual arms and legs and eyes and ears. We certainly don't need them within the womb. In fact, we start doing our isometric exercise because we need more room, you know. And yet, all the capacities we need to experience this physical world of time and space, we're being prepared for. And people know we're coming. That's why Indigenous society said, this is the time we have to be so careful and so respectful and loving and kind and compassionate around women who are with child. I mean, we're encouraged to only think positive thoughts, to touch soft and very soft things, like soft fur, to smell beautiful smells of flowers. These things were so powerful and so important, because we realized the incredible sacredness of life, because we understood spirit, we understood our souls. And that's what I would say about clairgenics. Clairgenics is a combination of 4 plant medicines distilled with science, by cutting edge science, which in a 3.5-hour process, in which it's very gentle. So you can work with elders 85 years old. You know, we have to do a real good health check on all these things, no matter what of these medicines we're using. I think it's one thing so important. But, you know, all of a sudden you see our elders that we're working with across now in the United States, Canada, and Mexico going into Guatemala. That's how fast this is spreading. Just like when peyote began to spread at a time of great need, so is this medicine spreading. And what it does is it allows you to speak with your soul. So it's more than just coming out and saying, wow, we're all one. Yes, we are all one. And the hurt of one is the hurt of all. And the honor of one is the honor of all. The healing of one is the healing of all. That's another thing that's so important. So here we are, just like in the mother's womb, we're growing our what I call my earth suit. Wearing my earth suit, here's my earth suit. Well, what's my purpose here? Well, it's certainly not to get my earth suit stronger and stronger, because I can guarantee you, as you get older, as you get older, the earth suit wears out. It's not about that. We're here to grow our spiritual arms and legs and eyes and ears. Our spiritual arms and legs and eyes and ears, to develop our soul. And we'll speak a little bit more about that soul at the conference. But we have a soul. Some people don't realize we have a soul. We have this part of us that transcends this world of time and space. And you can imagine, this is a womb world to the next. And what we're doing here is growing our spiritual arms and legs and eyes and ears for my spiritual journeys beyond this plane of time and space. So I'm learning to be more kind, more compassionate, more patient, more inclusive, more transparent. These are what these medicines have to share with us, help us to really understand our soul, our purpose here in life. And it's not about accumulating a whole bunch of wealth, because in the end, when our earth suit wears out, it's just like afterbirth, you know. And by the way, it's very interesting. You know, when we leave the mother's womb, we took that placenta, that afterbirth, and we had ceremonies to respect and honor it. And so just like we honor this, you might say, afterbirth, when we go to the spiritual world, this earth suit, we honor that. And we can see back too that our ancient ancestors, they knew about the spiritual worlds. They knew these things. And the world right now, more than anything, needs exactly what's going to be shared at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. Exactly what we need. This conversation between us. And it's time to share. We as a human family are facing some incredible challenges, and they're going to become deeper and deeper as we move forward. Because in a way, we're collectively in the what do you call that? Birth canal. Collectively, we are in a global birth canal right now. We have some pretty heavy contraction to go through yet before we emerge and awaken to the spiritual reality of oneness. We're one human family. The fact that the wings of the eagle, the condor, the quetzal, the hummingbird are two. One is man and one is woman, until both wings of that eagle, that condor, the quetzal, that hummingbird have equal power and respect and honor, humanity will never fly to its highest horizons as prophesied, which is literally the creation of a new global society based in justice, based in respect and honor for all members of our human family. And so that's what so excites me about what's happening. At the same time, again, we need to be able to respect and honor reciprocity, those indigenous peoples who have developed these medicines for thousands and thousands of years. And we'll also be talking about opportunities for that at the conference. And all the other speakers, I met the other indigenous presenters when we shared. Wow, what a group you have, what a circle you have of not just quote unquote indigenous people. Every one of us needs to awaken the fact we're all indigenous people of Mother Earth. Where else did we come from? We know we came from the stars beyond this. We are literally in the iron in all our cells was created in supernovas, but we're here now on this Mother Earth, and every one of us is a child of Father Sky and Mother Earth. We are, and I think this is what these medicines help us to do. And again, I believe that they're there for the healing. And when the healing has been completed, then we go on, because the medicine's us. We're the medicine.
Mm.
We're the medicine. The ideas become free and severed from all things but our creator. And so that's me. So when the medicine is necessary, and that's why I'm saying it's so wonderful that we have so many medical relatives involved in what we're doing with our Four Worlds holistic program for elders and veterans and mothers. Because mothers are so key to this. But that doesn't mean, by the way, that men don't have equal responsibility. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's the mother that nurtures that child in the womb, that nurtures that child in those first few years that we know are so critical in the epigenetic development of a human being. And so we need to be able to have and surround that sacred ceremony so well. And as well, we need also to understand that our elders from all cultures have things to share. And instead of rating, and I saw this in one of my economic class when I went to university, I remember they valued a human being by how much money they would make over their life. So that meant when you got to be around 50 years old, you're earning, your graph goes down like this. Well, Indigenous societies, because we realize we're on a spiritual journey, and those elders who are on that journey are on that journey before you, and they're guiding you along that journey, we held sacred both those at the dawn of their lives, children, babies, and at the sunset of their lives, elders, because we knew the advancement of our communities was from elders who had that lifetime experience, who were able to share that with the children. And they also understood that how important those first 5 years of life were for a child, to be surrounded with love and compassion and kindness. And these medicines were used when we needed to heal. They weren't something, by the way, that they were just used every week. They were used when we needed it. We needed these medicines. So I want to say about that much, and just say it's such an honor and pleasure to be with you, Stephen and Marc. Thank you so much for the great work you're doing. It's going to be a wonderful gathering. I hope many people join us, where they can, hopefully can physically be there. I'm looking forward to meeting all the relatives who are coming, but also those that can Zoom in. That's become another way of learning, another way of communicating, by the way, which was prophesied. I was there in 1975 down at a place called Sweat House Lodge in Corvallis, Oregon, with these two elders, Eddie Belrose and Abe Burnstick. We're sharing all these prophecies, things that are happening right today and will happen, by the way, which we'll talk about a little bit more at the conference. But what they said was, someday, you young men, at that time I was about 2 inches taller, I had black, can you believe this, black curly hair? The old earth suit was feeling pretty good. I wasn't too smart. I had a lot to learn. I wouldn't want to trade the positions where I am right now. But this is so important. It's so important that we understand that the soul has no ethnicity. The soul has no gender. The soul has no class. The soul is a reflection of the oneness of our Creator. And that's why when an elder gets older, you say that elder is kind, compassionate, loving, strong, just, all those spiritual qualities. Who are we talking about, a man or a woman? So part of this life is to integrate all those spiritual qualities, some which we quote feminine, quote unquote, masculine, quote unquote. They're all there to become a full human being. And again, these are what I feel these medicines contribute. Was there one more point that I was making? I kind of got off the edge.
Well, the prophecy about Zoom and how people are coming together, I was curious.
Okay, good. Okay. So this, thank you. You get, and I know, when you get to be in you're older, your mind kind of goes different places, different stories. So yes, here we were hearing all these prophecies with these two elders. And they said, someday you young men are going to be able to look right in front of you. And you're going to see people from other parts of Mother Earth. Some will be on the other side of Mother Earth, and you'll be able to talk with them.
Wow.
They said everything that has been covered up and buried in the snow, in this new springtime, will be revealed.
Beautiful.
And this, they call it the best I could translate it was the everywhere spirit made physically manifest on the earth. And that's what we have, an everywhere spirit. It connects us everywhere at the same time, everywhere all at once. And that's what I believe we're in. We're in this tremendous time of transformation. And there's no question whatsoever. And that's why they have to be used so sacredly, with so much oversight, I believe, so carefully, so that no one gets hurt, because they're powerful. They can transform 10 years of trauma and change it into spiritual energy. That's the fact. It can change people's life. It can help people who are on the verge of death. It can take from our veterans we have involved in our program, the veterans we work with. It can take this incredible trauma of war in which they're using all these different pharmaceuticals to try to suppress whatever it is and screwing people up. It can transform and change that and bring somebody where they're free and severed from all things but the Creator. They're free, to truly be free. To me, this is what this is all about. And so we are this everywhere spirit, as these two elders said in 1975. My gosh, how many years ago was that? That's a long time ago. They said this is what happened, and here we are. They didn't tell me, though, my curly hair would be gone. My plumbing wouldn't be quite the same as it was. But you know, that's the other thing too. This world is, we have this laughter. The Creator loves laughter and joy. That's what our nature is, to be happy and joyful beings. That's what we want our children to be surrounded with, happy and joyful beings. And this is where I believe that medical science, cutting edge medical science, now we have quantum physics, which is now beginning to demonstrate the fact that spiritual dimensions of which Indigenous science really looks at, as well as just the fact that we are spiritual beings. And that's why with our clairgenics, we know how powerful ceremony is in preparation, even for a short journey of 3.5 hours. That spiritual context is so important. The spiritual qualities of the healer or the people are healing together, because a lot of these are communal. And how to do that? How do you work with all these relatives to make sure that everyone comes from that experience in a good way? It's like our sweat lodge, our sweat lodge, the old teachings are, that you always, it wasn't the heat. This is so important. It's not the medicine. It's not the heat of the sweat lodge. It's the spirit by which that medicine is worked with, the songs that are used, the sensitivity of the healers to where people are at, because they've been there many times themselves. They've experienced all these traumatic things within themselves and have healed them with themselves, and they know how to work with others. So it's really wonderful. I look forward to seeing you very shortly, and all those who are attending, I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to come on my Zoom. I look forward to seeing you there, because Mitakuyepi, my beloved relatives, we are on the verge of the greatest development ever going to be imagined on this Mother Earth. It's been prophesied by traditions everywhere on Mother Earth. It's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a brand new way of living, a brand new way of relating, a brand new way of understanding that we are one human family, intimate related with all life. And the hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. Honor of one is the honor of all. And the final thing that we're working on is to unify our human family in war and begin peace on earth by 2030. That's our agenda for 2030. And the only thing that's going to help us to get there is to understand and wake up to the fact we're one human family, one with all life. And that's the core that I see, that experience that relatives have from these sacred medicines. Those that are mixed together, those who are that are. So again, aho, thank you so much.
Aho.
Uh-huh.
Well, Phil, just like I said at the beginning, we just let you loose, and you did an amazing job of putting it all together for people. And I think if everyone, or if enough people take to heart what you've shared, those kinds of thoughts and feelings today, the world will change. And so
Yeah.
thank you very much for sharing that. And we look forward to seeing you at the conference. And I'm going to let Marc say a bit about that. But just before that, I just want to ask you one question.
Sure.
Is there a way for people who are watching or listening to this to support your work? You mentioned this Four Worlds organization.
Yes, we have our Four Worlds Global Impact Fund, which provides support in the Amazon and to our healing work we're doing with Indigenous people and veterans across the United States, Canada, down into Mexico, moving down into Central and South America, because the prophecies promise that as Indigenous people rise, it would also be a rising for all human members of our human family,
Mm-hmm.
all members.
So how do they actually contact
Well,
that?
probably the best way would be simply to go to our website, fwii.earth.
F as in Fred, WII.earth.
Four Worlds International Institute.earth. fwii.earth.
Excellent. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Chief Phil. As always, I just enjoy taking in your wisdom, just from your the culture. And something I got out of our talk earlier in the week, last week, was the reframe of the word cultural appreciation. And with deep appreciation and gratitude, I thank you. I thank all humanity for where we're at today in many ways, and where we're going. And I really appreciate your work and sharing that, because oneness is the answer. Absolutely. I completely believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Have experienced it in some of the work I've done in the past. And as you share the prophecy from the 70s about us being here today, and being able to do this work even online in this way is really powerful. And I thank you for sharing that, because it's something I'm really committed to, where, it's one thing to have everybody in person. It's also great to be able to bring people in from all over the world who may not be able to physically attend an event in person or connect. And it gives us this great opportunity for people, in all learning modalities, that they can come in from anywhere in the world at any time in real time to connect, learn, grow, share, and be part of this global transformation that is necessary for the perpetuation of humanity in a great way. So I thank you for your work and your wisdom, and I look forward to meeting you again in person next weekend. So thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Aho, Shukmano he meado, Shinupasapa he medo haulimi chante washti. Which means my names are Shunkmano and Shinupasapa, and I stand fully responsible before the Creator for my words and my actions. Aho.
Beautiful. Aho.
Thank you.
So, Marc, do you want to say a bit about how people can connect either around the world or in person at the conference?
Well, of course, you can visit spiritplantmedicine.com. You can join us live in person. You can get your tickets. We still have some left, as well as you can join us from anywhere in the world live in real time via Zoom, just like this. We're going to do an interactive virtual event so that you can still connect in community. You can chat, you can ask questions of speakers. We'll bring you into the room. And if money's an issue, we've kept the virtual one very inexpensive and affordable for all. And there's also a free live stream that you can join there as well. The most important thing is that we continue to learn, we continue to grow, we continue to contribute beyond ourselves, so that we can really be part of a global oneness community that changes the world. So for that,
yeah. And Marc, I don't know I hope I'm not giving away state secrets, but don't you have a discount code that you're willing to share with people?
No, I think you have it, Stephen.
Okay, I'm allowed to share it then.
It's really hidden.
Yeah, Mark's the boss of that department. So okay, so folks,
I'm just the messenger, Stephen.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go on to another event.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks,
Love
Phil.
you all.
See
Big
you
hug
soon.
to everybody. We'll see you soon.
Yep.
Let's get one.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right.
All right.
Tell them the code, Stephen.
Yes, and the code. Yeah, you go ahead, Phil. I know you've got to go. We'll just finish up here. Yeah. So for those watching and listening, the code that we were just talking about is SAVE25. SAVE25. Just the number 2 and 5. SAVE25. That'll get you a 25% discount on any version of the tickets, whether it's the in-person versions, there are 2 or 3 of those, or the online version. So I think Phil made an amazing case that this is an essential gathering, and we hope to see you there, or one way or the other, on those magical screens that were prophesied 50 years ago, or sitting in the Great Hall at the University of British Columbia on the weekend of November 4th, 5th, and 6th. Marc?
What's more to say? I think we covered it all, but I will say I love Chief Phil. He's he's just beautiful, and he's funny, and his wisdom is just amazing. So I look
He's like
forward.
Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jolly fellow.
Absolutely. But it's what he said that I think is really important, is
Absolutely.
our state of joy and beingness. And I know I can take something from that, because leading up to the conference, it's always busy, but it's important to take time to laugh and rejoice and celebrate just our beingness, right? And see him laughing, with himself, at himself, whatever that may be, and things, it is just, it's a pleasure, and it lights me up. So I'm just looking forward to next week, where we will be fully in it at 11 o'clock next morning. So
great.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Until next time, everyone, we'll see you out there. We'll look forward to seeing you at the conference next weekend. Take care.